You know what? Let me take you back in time. Back to a time in 2008 as West Virginia is playing in the Meineke Care Bowl. And after an explosive 35-point first quarter, the two defenses would say, okay, it's time for us to slow this down a bit, with Carolina forcing a safety, and then on West Virginia's ensuing drive, we would see a punt. A beauty, forcing a fair catch at the 10-yard line. And while this punt was pretty good, it's nothing compared to the next one, where he'd have a 41-yarder to pin the Heels deep in their own territory at the 1-yard line. Finally, late in the fourth, the Mountaineers are in a bit of trouble as the West Virginia offense had gotten themselves into a sticky situation. 4th and long with the ball on the 24-yard line. Now was the time they'd call on this stud punter once again to come out, and he booms it 50 yards, backing up the Tar Heel returner to force a fair catch just outside their own 20. A beautiful performance by this senior on this night. 3 punts, with 2 of them starting the Heels on or inside their own 10-yard line, with no returns to keep the powerful UNC offense at bay. And as this was a great conclusion to the college career, as many of you know, this was anything but the end for the punter known as Pat McAfee. Now, if you thought that was the time he shocked the world, boy, you're in for a good one, because most people probably weren't even aware of the solid game he had to finish his collegiate career. So let's flash forward a bit. The draft would come and go with the Indianapolis Colts picking up the young, talented punter/kicker to come on in and help their special team situation, which, with the one and only Adam Vinatieri on roster, it meant they needed just a good punter to round it out. And boy, did he round it out. Well, season 1 he comes in, and in a year of great punting with Shane Leckler blowing already high expectations out of the water, Brian Mormon, Andy Lee, and Dustin Colquitt all in their prime, just to set the tone for the level of play, Pat came in and he did alright. I'm not going to gas him up right now, and admittedly he wasn't great. His directional ability was below average. He allowed a lot of big returns, like, against New England, they ran all over him, putting up 117 yards on his 7 punts, with a bulk of those coming off this ridiculous 69-yard return. But not all of this is just to tear him down, because heck, his second season was even worse, as he would find a way to regress in every possible way. Gross average was down, net average was worse. It was a Super Bowl slump for the whole team, but also included some rare character issues for Pat. As week 6 rolled around of the NFL season, Pat ends up getting arrested for public intoxication. And now I know that most of you are thinking, wow, this is shocking. And it was for many reasons, but it's far from the most shocking things he's done. From there, his below-average stats would slide further, and these glimpses of brilliance we saw in the first season became less and less common. And like I said, his net was atrocious, and his gross left even more to be desired. And I'd have to imagine he knew he was on the hot seat at this time. And I'll just say here, this is the part where good players would bounce back. Great players may even come back a bit better than they were before they left. But what set Pat apart is that we'd see from this moment on some of the most dominant stretches of punting of all time. 2011, he'd come out topping his first year's average by almost 2.5 yards, bumping him from middle of the pack to a top 10 punter of the league. On top of that, he started developing this reputation as he was the only punter in the league with 7 freaking tackles, which, yes, is reflective of the fact that he still hadn't completely overcome his problems with direction and allowing big returns. But we saw another side of McAfee, and it's the side that everybody loves, which is that he has such an unspecialist mind. You see, specialists in the pack, if you ask them to get their net yardage up, they might do something like try to kick more punts out of bounds or put some more air under the ball to increase the fair catch rate. But Pat was just like, well, what if I just tackle these fuckers before they get a big return? Well, gosh dang it, Pat, that seemed to work, as he put up almost a 40-yard net punt stat. And while he was already making moves in the ranks for being an entertaining punter to watch, now he's starting to make moves at being an actually good punter. But the next season, he'd continue his seemingly exponential growth to move up into the realm of a top 5 punter as far as gross is concerned, and he'd provide enough incremental value to help the Colts pull off an 11-5 season with the help of a young Andrew Luck at quarterback. And man, Luck was good. I'm sure he'll never leave the Colts early due to wear and tear from the organization, but that's a different story from a different time, because Pat's 13 and 14 years would be as solid as ever, as he proved his 2011 and 2012 success was the creation of hard work and a change of perspective and not some fluke. He would continue his streak of being a big hitter, notably in 2013 when a big kickoff return allowed for a bigger hit, lurching Pat into the spotlight, and dadgum he was meant for it. He was witty, funny, down to earth, not too technical, really the people's punter. And it fit too because in 14 he would get his first All-Pro and Pro Bowl recognition. Heck, in the offseason before the 15 season, he did a stand-up comedy show. And what other punter do you know has done stand-up comedy in the offseason? There are no other punters, and it was becoming increasingly clear that there were no other punters like Pat. And even though the ensuing 15 season would be not just a good, but incredible year with a top 2 average in the league and a top 10 net, and also improve himself from the technical aspect of the game to the level where he'd no longer be required to make so many tackles, needing only one this season, and heck, he even ran for an 18-yard first down in a close match against the Titans. He was nothing short of amazing this season, and you may even say people were a bit surprised by how much better he had gotten at this point. But nothing even comes close to how he really shocked the world. Enter 2016. Pat comes out and immediately shows a different bag of tricks. His first punt, what is this? He seems to walk straight, the nose of the ball tilted down, and then he aggressively torques it across his body to get way more distance on a ball than that style would usually permit. Yes, for his first ball of this season, he's continuing to develop this trend of a style of punt that's now being taught all the way down in high school with a misdirection ball called the Louie. His next punt, a perfectly placed missile, pinning the returner to the sideline so expertly that he loses a yard trying to make a return happen. From there, his next 2 balls would completely sail out of bounds, eliminating any chance of a return and even pinning the Lions inside their own 15 once. This was not something we'd seen before at this level. The poise, the perfection, his only fluke being a bad bounce that let a ball sneak into the end zone in an otherwise well-placed punt. His next game would show off an equally powerful part, as he'd come out against the Broncos and in the thin air of Colorado decimate the football as it flies 72 yards, managing to still net him 52 yards, as he followed up with not 1, not 2, but 3 50-yard punts in a row after that to show he was not just an elite punter, but had elite consistency, with his last punt sailing out of bounds to continue his era of dominance in the accuracy department as well. While we'd continue to see amazing performances, we wouldn't get really blown away again until the Colts would take on Chicago, where a 0-punt first half seemed to awaken a beast inside of Pat, making for his first punt to jump off his foot for 66 yards, even though it ended up slipping into the end zone. His next ball was a forced fair catch 50 yards down the field, which is hard enough to do, but it was his last punt that just blew the minds of all, as he uncorked a 74-yarder, flipping the field harder than SpongeBob flips patties to pin the Bears inside their 5-yard line. So now you're starting to see this is the Pat we've all known, as many people have forgotten about his early struggles in the league. But these games were all in the first 5 of the season. He still had a whole season left, like against Green Bay in November, which is never an easy place to play. He averaged over 55 yards a punt, including this massive 55-yard fair catch and a humongous 67-yarder that he was starting to hit almost every game now, it felt. Against Pitt, he'd not only hold Antonio Brown to 0 return yards on 2 punts, but while the game was still close, with Pitt just having a 14-point lead, Pat would throw for a 35-yard first down to the 8-yard line to help the Colts put their first points on the board. It just seemed like there was nothing he couldn't do. But all of this accumulated to one of the best seasons of all time, putting up over 49 yards per punt, which is within 2 yards of an NFL record, and a 43.5-yard net. It was just an amazing and historic season, as he proved he was an elite punter to go on with his elite personality. And he was just peaking too. 2016, he was completely unstoppable. Wait, what? He retired? I mean, he's only 29 years old. He just topped the leaderboards in gross punt. He's easily a top 2 or 3 punter in the league right now, and he still has so much left in him. What do you mean he's just gone? Now, I'm sure this is going to be the only time the Colts are going to have a surprise retirement for the next decade. It still shocked the world. All were speechless, and I don't think we've seen somebody with this much left in their prime, especially in the specialist community, just walk away. And to what? Start a podcast? And yeah, I guess the jury's still out on if that will go anywhere. But the 7 seasons of Pat that we got, and his 5 seasons of dominance from 2011 to 2016, followed by his untimely retirement, is part of the sports world that we may never, ever see again.